Hi, my name is Sasha. Welcome to the Muthaship. Today I want to talk about how to handle when you get triggered. And this is just something that has helped me along my path. Some information that came through my energy work and through channeling. Whenever we experience a trigger, it takes us back to the original time frame that happened to us. So especially when it was traumatic, our body becomes kind of stuck in a state of fight or flight in the first chakra, and it's because we're not regulating back to our regular pattern. A piece of us is kind of stuck outside of ourselves. So when we get triggered, it takes us back to that main event that happened, and this can cause repetitive loops and cycles and karma that's kind of gets deeper and deeper instead of getting undone. So when we notice the point in the cycle when we are getting triggered, even if this is an old trigger and we've done work on it, it will keep arising over and over again, like in cyclical time. So when you look at your own DNA, think of the spiral pattern of the DNA. You'll notice sometimes in your life you're reaching a point on the wheel in cyclical time that ties you to another time when you dealt with the same issue, but maybe you're on a different level now. So we can see this through time and space in the DNA cycle, through our ancestral lines, our karmic lines, and also through the patterns of astrology, especially when we're dealing with eclipses. Eclipses happen. The best analogy that I heard was, you can imagine eclipses like all the pearls on a necklace. They're all tied together. One eclipse is tied to the next eclipse. So if you know astrology and you know the patterns of the planets, that is a system that is used by the Anu to regulate time. So the more that you know about astrology, the more that you can have a higher understanding of what is being regulated so that you can transcend it, so that you can become more sovereign in your own DNA. All these things are related through your birth chart, through your DNA, through cyclical time, through the way that time is nonlinear. I don't know if you're able to hear in this video or this audio, but right now it is evening time when I'm recording, and you can hear the crickets outside. The crickets bring a higher frequency of, well, it's very linked to Andromeda. So that might be helpful for some of you to tune into music and into the higher octaves of frequency and sound healing. Especially when it comes to becoming triggered. Two things that I wanted to bring up about being triggered is when you notice the trigger, sometimes it's hard to pull yourself out of that reaction pattern, and especially when you're dealing like with PTSD and OCD and these different types of things that are linked to childhood trauma, childhood neglect, not getting the nurturing or the understanding you need as a child or even an adolescent. These are things that can be undone, but it takes a lot of focus, and especially when you're dealing with these types of imbalances, it's hard to focus. So the first thing you got to do is recognize the trigger. How do you recognize the trigger? Well, when we are feeling so uncomfortable or so much pain or so much like anxiety, it can be agonizing, and our natural tendency is to want to escape it, run away from it, dodge the bullet, so to speak. And when it's repetitive and it's happened time and time again, we sort of get used to it being in our energy field. If you're empathic, if you're a starseed, if you're a walk-in, if you are an indigo, any number of things, I like to call them flavors. If you're any type of like light worker in any form, most likely you are going to have to go into that pain and see where it's coming from, into that anxiety. And once you're able to just release it, you release the energy off of you from the first point in time where it originated, you no longer have it in your field. That's the easiest way for empaths to change things. And it takes a lot of work in the physical realm to just kind of notice where the patterning happened, where the trigger point is, and to understand where it came from. That's the work part. Doing the energy work, once you locate it, is not that hard. But repatterning your brain, repatterning your programming, your thoughts, your everything, like the way that you do things, the way that you react, is the work. And if you're able to pinpoint those places that you have a trigger, that's a huge blessing. Even if it comes in the form of, most empaths have the capacity to heal other people, but we don't always recognize that we're taking on their energy. In the age of Pisces, most empaths especially transform the world around us through transmuting energy through our own system. But especially as we've now moved into the age of Aquarius, and we understand that a lot of denser energies are lifted, the veils are thinner now, we don't have to do that transformation work through our system. And it's really intense to do it that way anyway. It's really a hard way. We have to learn how to control our energy systems, take control over our sovereignty, and regulate our own energy. I have a lot of information and some like package workshops and a lot of helpful things if you're new to this path of like learning how to regulate your energy, especially if you're an empath or a starseed of any nature. So when we recognize these triggers, we do our energy work. How do we do this? We find the trigger, we find the line. You find that place with your third eye. Or if you don't see it with your third eye, you find the place in your body that you can feel the sensation. Where does it hurt? Where does it give you the anxiety? And instead of dealing with that symptom and kind of looking at it from the outside in, you go into it deeper, following it, asking yourself all along the way, where did this come from? How did I get it? Until you discover it. And you begin to lift the layers of it off. And when you do this work, you're going to notice in your lifetime, in your daily world, that situations, people, places, things might arise. Emotions might be really intense for a few days while this energy pattern is coming off of you. And you'll get continuously triggered, but you continually dissolve. That's one of the keys that helped me a lot. Whenever that line comes up, whenever those situations come up, you become the observer in your own body. You notice the situations, but you know that it's linked to that event. You know that it's linked to that trauma. And you dissolve your reaction pattern. You dissolve everything around it. The energy forms. Even if you have an argument with another person, you dissolve your reaction. And you let their energy, I like to use the analogy of making yourself into a plane of glass. You let their energy pass through your field without getting hooked anywhere, and just sort of like going back into the earth behind you somewhere. You're a pane of glass, you're clear in your field, you're clear in your energy, and their energy has nowhere to hook onto you. There's a lot of Toltec practices that deal with this too. So whatever works for you, if it works to dissolve